Hi, welcome to Engineering 160A, Studio Session 3.4, Creating a SubVI. Today we're going to discuss the creation of SubVIs. You can think of a SubVI as a user-defined function block. LabVIEW allows the flexibility of packaging a user-created VI such that it can be easily integrated into other, possibly more advanced, higher-level VIs. We will turn our waveform simulator VI into a SubVI, design the SubVI icon, similar to function block icons, and show how we can designate inputs and outputs. So here we are back at our waveform simulator VI. And the question is, well, how do we make this a SubVI? Luckily, it really already is, and I'll show you how to use it. Let's go to File and create a new VI. In the new block diagram, what I can do is I can go to my waveform simulator VI, and I can go to the upper right hand corner where I see this icon here, and I can left click and drag it and drop it down into a new VI. At this point, this SubVI is not very useful. And the first reason for that is if I try and hover over my icon, I see that I have no way to interact with this SubVI. I have no inputs and no outputs. There are no wiring terminals at all. In addition, the icon itself has this very generic figure, and it doesn't really tell me anything about the VI. It doesn't tell me what the VI does. So let's see how I can change that. I'm going to go ahead and just close this new VI I created because I don't need it any longer, and I won't need to save it. In order to first change the appearance of what my SubVI icon looks like, I can go over to the icon in the upper right hand corner, and I can right click and go to Edit Icon. This brings up a new window where I can now change the appearance. There are a couple of tabs here. The first one says Templates. Here we could use some pre-made templates to help us start off, which are built into LabVIEW. There's also Icon Text. Here we can just input text and it will appear in our icon. Glyphs, which we can add pre-made pictures in. And lastly, a tab for layers where we can put all the text and different icons on different layers, and we can turn each layer on and off independently. So here for our generic icon, we can see this eyeball here, and I can just left click on it and I can make it invisible and have it all disappear. So this layering could help me make more complicated things and make all the icons manageable. I want my icon to be descriptive of what it does. So I'm not going to need this generic symbol anymore. So instead of just having it invisible, I'll go ahead and left click on the symbol, highlights the entire layer, and I'll delete the whole thing by clicking this red X. Now I will go to Icon Text, and here you can see I can add text. I'll be descriptive, and since this is the waveform simulator VI, in the first line I'll write the word wave, and in the second line I'll write the word sim. And now you can see these two words have appeared on my icon. And if I wanted, I can click this to center them vertically or unclick to not have them centered, and I will leave them uncentered such that I'll add some descriptive picture too. So I'll go to glyphs, and let's see, this is creating waveforms or some sort of signals. So let me go down to signals. I can select any icon I want. How about this icon right here, which appears to give the user the ability to change the frequency of some square wave. In addition, I'll want to have a border around this, so I can go use these pretty standard functions here, and I can go to rectangle, and I can have my line color be black, and I can put a border around this entire icon. Now I can click OK, and here we can see that my icon has now changed to be much more descriptive. Now let's see how we can create inputs and outputs to this VI block. Just to the left of the icon, we have the input-output terminal pattern. And I can right-click on this, and it brings up a bunch of options. I can remove a terminal, I can add some terminals, or I can change and select a pre-made list of terminals. So each one of the sub-blocks here, I can either make an input or an output. So here I have 3 inputs or outputs, 4, 2, so on and so forth. So I'm going to want to have my digitizing parameters and my waveform parameters as inputs, so 2 inputs, and I'm going to want to have 1 output, which is my waveform output. So I'll need 3 things in total, and Typically, inputs are on the left and outputs are on the right, so this looks like a good block for me to have. 2 inputs and 1 output. But I still need to assign the inputs and outputs. Assigning the inputs and outputs is quite easy. All I need to do is go to the terminal that I want, left click, and then go to the control on the front panel which I want to associate that terminal with. So digitizing parameters, I will make the upper left-hand terminal by just left-clicking the lower left-hand. Let me left-click on that, and I'll associate that with waveform parameters. And lastly, I will go to the right-hand terminal, and I will assign that with my waveform output. Now let's see how we can integrate this into a new VI. Let me go to File, New VI, and I want to drop that icon into the block diagram. So I'll left-click on the icon and drag it over to the new VI. And I'll see now when I hover over, I have 3 terminals. The top one here, it says digitization parameters, waveform parameters, and on the output side, we have my waveform output. If I was ever using a VI created by someone else, which had SubVIs, and I wanted to understand what that SubVI was doing, all I would need to do is hover over and double click, and that will open up the VI itself, which created that SubVI. So if I wanted to, I can then dive in to understand what it was doing. But we created this so we know what's going on in our Wave Simulator VI. To show you how this would work, let's go ahead and input some digitization parameters and input waveform parameters, and then we'll plot with our XY graph again the output. So to do that, we already saved the digitization parameters in our last video. So I can just come to File, and I can go to Open, and I can grab my digitization parameters.ctl file, and I can open that up and go to my front panel of my new VI and just grab this icon for those parameters and drop it down. And here we see that I have my number of samples and my sampling frequency. Double click on that, it'll bring me to the block diagram, and now I have those parameters and I can just hook up that cluster to the correct input. I'll do the same thing for the waveform parameters. File, Open, waveform parameters.ctl. I'll open that, and I will grab that icon and drop it onto the front panel. Okay. And I'll go ahead and hook that up to the bottom terminal, waveform parameters. And the output, let's say I want to plot an XY graph again. So let's right click on the front panel, graph, XY graph, drop that in, double click, and I can hook up the output cluster into the XY graph. And now if I go to the front panel and run this program, we'll see that it operates the same way as the base VI. But all of the programming is done in that SubVI block. This new VI is really simply digitization parameter input, waveform parameter input, and just this block here. So using SubVIs can make more complicated VIs much easier to digest. And that concludes our discussion on SubVIs.